The way we think about the wild, it isn't some fixed, unchanging thing. It actually changes all the time with our technology, our culture, and what we want out of life. So today, we're going to take a little trip back in time, and we're going to do it by looking at three amazing old travel guides for Banff National Park from 1925 all the way to 1951. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so imagine this is your ticket to the wilderness, printed almost 100 years ago. There's no Gore-Tex, no GPS, no highways to get you there. Your only way into the massive Canadian Rockies was on a machine of steam and steel, brought to you by the Canadian National Railways. And this little drawing of a campfire and a canoe? It's way more than just a quaint picture. It's a promise of a raw, real, unfiltered experience with nature.
So our first piece of evidence, if you will, is this pamphlet from 1925. And the title, it tells you everything you need to know: Campcraft Woodlore. This was right after World War I, and heading into the woods was not a casual weekend trip. No way. It was a serious expedition, one that took real skill, real grit, and a healthy dose of respect for the forest. This guide was basically your survival textbook. What's really fascinating is that the guide doesn't start with practical tips. It starts with this big, grand, romantic idea. There's a real poetry to it, You can feel that post-war optimism just jumping off the page. The forest wasn't just someplace you visit. It was the source of the entire nation's health, wealth, and happiness.
But then, boom, right after that beautiful, poetic thought, you get hit with this harsh reality. This warning is printed right there in big, bold letters. It perfectly captures the two sides of the coin back then. The wilderness was this beautiful, spiritual place, but it was also incredibly dangerous and unforgiving. One little mistake with your fire, and everything could be lost.
And that word, woodlore, that was the whole point. This guide wasn't about finding the prettiest waterfall for a photo. It was about teaching you the hard skills: how to build a shelter, how to use an axe properly, how to find your way, and maybe most importantly, how not to be a problem for everyone else out there. It was all about earning your right to be by that campfire.
Okay, so now let's jump forward, because in just 14 years, wow, everything changes. On the left, you see that single, lonely campfire from 1925. And on the right, a detailed street grid of a town from 1939. This one visual contrast pretty much tells the entire story of what happened next. The wild was about to be tamed by a powerful new force.
By 1939, the automobile was king, and it completely changed the game for Banff. So our second pamphlet, it's not a survival guide anymore. Not even close. It's a tourist guide for a destination. That untamed forest was quickly becoming an organized, accessible, and managed place.
And just look at what's being advertised now. We're talking hotels and bungalow camps, not flimsy tents. There are garages and service stations right inside the park. The main things to do have shifted to stuff like boating, fishing, and taking scenic motor drives. The goal isn't to conquer the wild anymore. It's to comfortably enjoy the view. The map itself tells a huge part of the story. In 1925, you would have needed a topographical map, something that showed you the actual shape of the mountains and valleys. But by 1939, you get a road map. It's all about paved roads, the town layout, and tourist spots you can drive to. The mountains have become almost wallpaper. The main way to see Banff now is from behind the wheel of a car. So this was a massive change in philosophy. Nature went from being a challenge that you had to prove yourself worthy of to becoming a product that you could enjoy with as much convenience as possible. The barrier to entry wasn't about your outdoor skills anymore. It was really just about whether you could afford a car and a tank of gas.
All right, one more jump ahead. It's 1951. The Second World War is over, and people are starting to have more free time and money for leisure. And our third and final guide reflects that perfectly. It's not a general guide to the whole park, it's a super specialized guide just for hikers. The visitor has changed once again. This timeline just lays it all out so clearly. We move from a survival manual to a road atlas to what's basically a menu of recreational activities. In just over 25 years, the typical visitor transforms from a woodsman to a motorist to what we would now call a modern hiker.
Think about it. By 1951, getting to Banff was the easy part. The roads were built, the hotels were waiting. So the big question wasn't about survival anymore. The new question was, okay, I'm here, now what are the fun things I can do? The park had officially become a playground. And this guide was the instruction manual.
And look how the advice has changed. That deep, almost philosophical idea of woodlore is gone. In its place, you have these simple, direct rules. Be careful with fire, still important, of course. Do not feed the bears. Now that's a modern problem, isn't it? It only happens when lots of people and animals are in the same space. And keep the parklands tidy. That's the birth of the leave no trace idea we all know today. So when you look back at these 3 snapshots in time, it becomes so obvious. Our concept of the wild is not a constant. It's really just a mirror that reflects who we are at any given moment, our technology, our fears, and what we're hoping to find out there.
First, we had the railway camp. Back then, the wilderness was a true frontier. You had to be tough to get there, and you had to rely on your own skills to master it. It was a challenge you had to overcome.
Then the automobile arrived, and it created the motorist's town. The wilderness was camed with asphalt roads, turning it into a beautiful backdrop for a comfortable drive. It became a destination you'd just visit.
And finally, we get to the hiker's code. At this point, access and comfort are just expected. The wilderness becomes a place for specific hobbies, all governed by a new set of rules for being responsible. It's not a frontier anymore. It's a playground that needs to be managed.
This really sums it up perfectly. We went from an entire mindset of survival, self-reliance, and that deep knowledge of woodlore to a new one based on recreation, rules, and following marked trails. The whole relationship changed, from us versus nature to us managing nature for our own enjoyment.
So, from campcraft to campsite, the journey shows us that our definition of what's natural is always a work in progress. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we look ahead at things like virtual reality, climate change, even space tourism, what will our invitation to the wild look like in another 100 years? What skills will we need, and what new rules will we have to follow?